giving hope, giving light, bringing peace to our world. And this is the real movement.
To be deliberate about it. Tell them what money is about right from an early age. Establish that. Let them know that money, for example, is what you get in exchange for the services that you offer. Period. And so the child can grow up thinking, so what services am I going to offer in life as I grow up? When from a tender age, you listen to your child, you pay attention, you are giving that child a very heavy dose of self-esteem. But very early in life, you have to let your child know that it's not a crime to be small. That you also were small. And they know you were small. But maybe it may not really register very well with them. Maybe they might think that you just appeared at some point in time, especially if you don't show them your baby pictures. It takes courage to let them go. It takes courage to, also let each child have their individuality. I'm often asked this question because my older kids are away from home most of the time. One is in college, the other is in high school and is in a boarding school. So the little one, she's alone, and oftentimes will ask me, how is she coping alone? How is she coping? Yeah, it might be tough and all that, And sometimes, first of all, in my mind, I think it's because she's not an only child. Right? What about people that have just one child, and that one child grows up alone, 15, 16 years old, 18, what do you do? Two, you also discover again somewhere along the line, because it's good for them to be, yes, well bonded, learn from each other, but at some point in time as well, and you might even be able to achieve it also without them being separated for a while. But organize individual times, sessions with each child. Even if you have twins, organize individual times with them. It was just really also surprising that you found out that sometimes you might discover that a child also is able to, there are aspects of a child that comes out, that you didn't know before. And even sometimes when you're not there, maybe you travel, maybe you leave your child for the first time for 3 days or for 1 week, and your mom comes to stay. And this is the first time you're leaving your child, and your child is maybe 6 years old or 8 years old. There'll be some feedback. You should be eager to hear some things, and it should be positive things, It should be things like your mom should be able to say, when she woke up, or when he woke up, he made his bed, and then I'm like, huh? He made his bed. Oh, that should tell you that is the end of bed making for any child, for that particular child. Yes. So you find that, so this was in there all the while. But because you were still helping, you didn't know when to, he actually, and then you now announced it that you mean you did, yes. It's like, okay. Then I'm not, because the child may not tell you, Mommy, stop helping me to make my bed. It's time. Mommy, now I can wash my plate myself. You just have to know when to drop that and test and see how they'll be able to carry on their own. So it takes courage to do those things. It takes courage. Yeah, it takes courage to be away from your child sometimes. If you have to be away for a few days, it takes courage, And I believe that, God will continue to give us the wisdom and the grace that we need. Because it's a very worthy calling. It's a high calling, that, of course, we have to balance it with our health. We have to balance it with our own lives as well, so that we're not worn out, and you don't let them run you ragged, to the point where by the time they're now almost adults, where they can stand on their own, you're even looking for the pieces of your life. Because your life has been so lost in their own that you can't even find yourself, or your health, to now be able to enjoy the blessings of just seeing what they have become. It will just be a joy to see what your children become in future. And I know that it will be good, it will be great. They will turn out well. Prioritize your children above your work. It's important. Prioritize your children. You know, in the Bible it says Eli's children. He said the children of Eli, the sons of Eli, were corrupt, for they did not know the Lord. And Eli was a great, great prophet, great man of God, you know. But at the end of the day, God was angry with him because he did not pay attention to the proper upbringing of his children, and they were exactly the opposite of what he was. The fact that you are successful at work does not automatically translate that your children will be successful. The fact that you're anointed, an anointed bishop, you know, man of God or woman of God, does not mean that automatically your children will turn out right. You know, so because there is a pathway for everything. It's what we invest into, it's what we are committed to part-time that will thrive. That's it. You notice what you're committed to part-time will thrive. That's why also when you see a child among your children, if there's a particular one that is weak, maybe in academics or in attitude, then you need to face that child squarely for a period of time. You need to focus your, prayers for a season more. Of course, you pray for all of them, and you pray for all your children and all children. Hello. I pray for children that are not my children as well, potential friends, children all over the world, because, hey, they're going to meet other children. So if you're just saying, I'm just praying for only my child, and you don't consider other children, even children that you don't know, and asking God to just bless them, help them, your children will come in contact with all these other children, and they might affect them negatively. So we need to, train them. We need to spend time with that child that, spend more time in prayer for that child that is weak or the child that is going through a difficult time. And because that child just needs it. It's also courageous in times like this to encourage our children, to package themselves well. Compose, yes. Compose inside and outside. We've talked about the esteem, which is something that is imbibed in them as they grow up. Esteem comes from validation. It comes from words and actions and attitudes. It comes from, a child growing up to believe that he's good. He's a good person. God made him, for greatness, or God made her, and all that. And when a child does something wrong, you scold the child, you correct the child for that action. That does not make the child wrong. That does not make the child the dunce. That does not make the child worthless. You have to deal with the action and deal with the event and move on. Because some children have mistaken the whole thing that I am just wrong. I am just the black sheep of this family. And that's because of the expressions in anger and what has been communicated. For such people, children, the self-esteem goes down. But when we give them high dose of esteem, they are composed. The outside packaging too is important, because I think it's not just enough to just complain about young people these days or how certain people dress and all that. It's important to teach them and to model, to them what is decent. It's just still all about communicating, about communicating your values to them. This one says, what if you tell your mom she's shouting and she says that's rude? What do you do? So what do you do if you are the child? Well, you don't go on arguing. You have to keep quiet. Okay, he says, whenever I try to correct my children, like I say, take one sweet and not two. My husband goes behind me to give them what they asked. I have tried correcting him, but he wouldn't listen. What do you have to say to that?
Well, parenting really is a combined effort of both parents, and children can be very manipulative. So when they know that you have a common front, it's easier for discipline to be enforced in the home. If you give if you say yes to something and your husband says no, it's better both of you come together, have a common front, and then you can face the children. Well, there's nothing you can do really, because you can't disrespect your husband also in front of the children, you know. So you have to have a common front. You shouldn't let them know, oh, okay, you said take one and the children, and the husband said take two. But in your own ways, when you're with your children alone, you can enforce the values that you want. And they know that, oh, with mommy, this is what happens. But at the same time, try and present a united front with your husband, because your children, you will give them different signals. And if you're not careful, then they can go either way. But the thing is not to disrespect your husband in front of the children. So I'm sure you have to pray, you have to talk to your husband about it, and you have to ensure that you have a common front.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, this question says, I allow my boys to discipline their younger sister whenever she's rude to them, as she is very stubborn. Recently, a parent in my son's school approached me that my eldest son bullies her daughter. Please, how do I correct this behavior before it gets out of hand?
Well, it's a very funny question, because she sets the ball rolling by practicing. You said, the teacher said the son bullies another child in the classroom. I think the parents set the ball rolling at home, and what I would have done, or what I would advise, is teach the boys how to respect girls. It's very, very important, because, you know, that's the younger sister. It's possible she's not being rebellious, but it's, you know, like it's been said here that personalities differ. It's her own way of saying no. I mean, she has a right to say no sometimes, you know, but when you set up your son to discipline, depending on what you mean by discipline, the sister, I mean, you've set how do I put it now? You've set the boy up for being a bully already. So I think you need to call that child back and advise him on how to respect people, how to respect girls especially, because you may go on and he may become a bully to his wife, and that is not what you want. So you need to call back that child and talk to him about respecting women. It's very, very important for men to respect women.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So you have to, I think you need to go back and first of all, ask for forgiveness, because discipline, you are the one that is authorized to discipline your children. You have made your sons, you have delegated the discipline to them at such an early age, because we're talking about school scenarios, so it looks like they are in primary school or they're in secondary school. So maybe they came in the beginning, they'll come reporting, and you now tell them, you know what, next time you discipline her, don't come and tell me. That is wrong. They have to report to you because you are the authority. They need to come and report that, look, my sister did so and so and so and so. And then you discipline her, you correct. But now there are two boys. Well, sorry, they didn't say two, but he said my boys. And so it looks like maybe she's the only girl. And then she has these two brothers. I think that she's already feeling marginalized. She's trying to be heard, she's not. And we've been given the license to put you in your place when you talk to us anyhow. I think this person has missed it, just like you said. You've missed it. It's not in their place to discipline her. You know, so does she discipline them when they, no, just because they are older, no. The discipline lies with you. And I think the more they do that, the more rejection she might feel, because she might think, is it because I'm a girl? Is it because you're older than me? And now they've gone beyond the boundaries, they've gone beyond the jurisdiction to do it to a girl who is not their sister. So when they get married, God forbid, now this person is now back in their jurisdiction, because they will see their wife like their sister. At least this is within the family. And I married you, so I have the right to give you a slap because you were rude to me. That is the beginning of wife battering. So you've got to apologize to your sons that I'm taking it back, that authority. It's wrong. for you to discipline her. Whenever she offends you, you come and report to me, and I will discipline her and judge. Okay. This is more for our local end here in Nigeria. We have lots of tribes. We have different dialects, languages. I mean, in Nigeria, you have as many as at least 200 different languages, dialects. But English is our official language. The average Nigerian would at least be able to speak broken English, you know. So it says, mother tongue is fast eroding in homes due to westernization. Majority are happy their children speak foreign language due to their native foreign language rather than their native language. At what point should the mother tongue be incorporated? I'm reading out this question. It's not necessarily my personal views or our personal views here, because I cannot confirm that the cultural language or the mother tongue is eroding because of westernization. But this is how this person feels, you know. And then the second one says the home suffers this day as a result of wrong values from parents. How can this be managed? For instance, some don't even know or are not told where their parents are from, you know, where the parents were born or where they're originally from. And children these days no longer kneel or prostrate to parents and elders outside the home. So the first one, it says mother tongue is fast eroding. Do you want to?
At what point do you teach a child?
Yes. At what point
Right
should
from
the
day
mother
one,
tongue
once
be
the child is
incorporated?
born. Once the child is born, because
Yes.
some studies say that there's something called the sensitive period for language. There's a critical times that children acquire languages, you understand? And so if the child loses that period, it may be difficult for the child to acquire it with ease.
Yeah.
You know, like you go to the university to read a foreign language, and it takes you like 4 or 5 years. But for children, they absorb the language of the environment just by living within that particular environment. So the best time is day one.
Yes.
As you're suckling your baby, you're talking in that language. The child will pick it,
Yes.
irrespective of the language that is being used in the school.
Yes.
And when the child comes back, you continue to establish that language, or else the child will lose that period.
Yes.
And it becomes difficult to acquire it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think this is really in line with values, the values that you have. I really don't think that we should be judgmental about it, but it's still back to values. What values do you want to give your children? So if you value your mother tongue, the language, the dialect, or whatever, you know, that you speak, in addition to the English language or the French or whatever the official language of your country is, or the universal, you know, language, if you value it that much, then you should start from an early age. Some of us didn't start early enough, and our children struggle with speaking it and look back and wish, oh, I wish I could really rewind. Because I remember growing up, I mean, I can speak the Yoruba language very well, and I can read it. But my children are not even that fluent at all. Why? Because growing up, this is my own personal, you know, or my husband and I, the mistake we made or whatever, is that I personally thought that it would be an automatic thing, because I cannot remember growing up my parents sitting me down to say this is the language, these are the alphabet, these are the, and I went to a school in Nigeria. Most schools you're taught in English. We went to the mother tongue in school, so I picked it from home. My dad speaks English a lot to us. Till now, English is still what I speak with him. And with my mom, I speak a lot in our dialect. And I can't remember anybody teaching me, but I found that I was fluent in English, yes, and also fluent in at least a bit, you know, in the mother tongue, but I wasn't taught. So I assumed that my kids will just pick it at some point in time, but behold. So I tell people, young couples now, the moment they have their children, just what you said. If you want them to, except you don't want them to, and it's good for them to, if you want them to, start from an early age. Some people also have this fear that if I introduce the dialect first, the mother tongue first, Igbo, Yoruba, whatever it is, then the child's English will not be good. But experience, people who have gone through that, you know, we have found out, you see, if you don't have anyone else that had that experience, you might think that the child's English would not be as good. And you don't want your child to be of school age from age 3 or 4, and your child can't speak English and is, but I have a friend who, she lives in Canada, and we went to school together when we were growing up in elementary school. But she now lives in Canada with her family and has kids speak the mother tongue fluently, because when they got to Canada, just after they married, they had all their children there. She and her husband decided, and it was more from her husband, and, because he valued it so much, he didn't even think it was such a big deal, but he told her that we are only going to be speaking our mother tongue Nigerian language in Canada to ourselves in this house and to the child. And all their kids speak it fluently. When they visited Nigeria recently, I was shocked. I said, how did you do it? And that's what they explained. I said, to the point that when her first child was about 3.5 or something and started school, a play school, play group, whatever, outside the house, they complained that her child didn't understand English. But she said they were not bothered, because they knew that's why the child is now in school. They had to explain that we don't speak English at home. And they could see that she and her husband spoke English very well, fluently, even with the tone, the Canadian thing. But it's like, we deliberately told the teacher and told the school authorities, we're sorry, but we deliberately have not introduced it. So you are the ones that are going to introduce it. And they were so confident. Naturally, you think that you should be afraid that, what if this child doesn't pick it, English? What if he picks it eventually? But it's somehow funny, you get. Because there's what we call mother tongue interference that people have in this part of the world. We call it, some people, the H factor. They can't pronounce the letter H very well. So if they want to say head, they say ed. Or if they want to say egg, they say heg. And it's because their mother tongue language affected it, So maybe they didn't go to good enough schools where the English also was fluent. The teacher also may have had that problem, But I think what I saw in my friend and her husband was the confidence that, it won't be a setback. And they said within a year, within even under a year, because the child was still small, still young, like you said, at a young age. I heard that a child at age 1, 2, 3 you can teach a child like 4 different languages at the same time, and the child will not be confused. So English, your official language, you can introduce French, then your dialect, maybe your husband may have, because in Nigeria we have intertribal marriages. What in the world people may call interracial or whatever. So you may be from a different tribe from your husband. And if you want your children to understand your husband's dialect and your own dialect as a mother, plus the English or whatever the official language is, what they're saying, the experts are saying, just from the beginning, under 5, introduce everything, or 1 at a time. And they will end up speaking all of them. But the natural mind would think that you're setting the child up for confusion, So if I could rewind even my own life too, I would like to speak English, French, my mother tongue, all of that, about 5 languages. And I think it's really empowering and it's richer if you have that mother tongue and your child can learn to speak it. Okay, but the second part, to this person's question, that the home suffers this as a result of wrong values from parents. Yeah, and that's why we're saying parents should have proper values, be honest, don't get into exam malpractices, don't bribe people for your child to write or not write an examination, all those things. Don't be fearful, parents. Be courageous, that's what we're saying. Be courageous in communicating your values. Teach your children not to lie, that honesty pays, in the long run. Your child may come home and say, I was honest about it, but I was still punished. Say, don't worry. God sees and he will reward. And that's why we're having this talk. It's for parents. But in line with the values of kneeling down for parents or prostrating, those out there in Europe or outside Nigeria that you might be watching this program, you wonder what is that all about. It's still all in line with our tribes. Some tribes have ways in which they greet the elderly, and in my country, the Yorubas may not even know that the Igbos, they don't kneel down or prostrate. You may think it's a all Nigerian thing. They don't. So it's really even common to the Yorubas, but it's still the same thing. If it's a value that you have or that you were taught and you want your children to continue with it, by all means teach them. But you can't impose it on other families. You cannot impose it on other families. So these are not my views, because a child can kneel down for you and be the most, disrespectful. And a child can kneel down or prostrate and it could communicate just subserviency, being subservient to someone else. So if you're teaching the kneeling down, the prostrating, please just make sure that your child still has that esteem. So I remember growing up, when I became like a teenager, my mom was trying to say that she wanted my younger ones, because I'm the eldest of 4, to put sister in front of my name. That's also common in Nigeria, in the part of where we are from, and in our dialects, that you don't call elderly people by their names. You don't. You put Mr. something in front of their name, Uncle something. Yeah. Because our languages, they're richer than the English, language, really. And I was like, no, I didn't want any of that. No. All I wanted was respect. That respect was the most important thing. That is not about putting a title in front of anybody's name, so. And we all like respect, don't we? Yes. Young and old, we all like respect. So these days people are putting titles in front of Reverend, Bishop, whatever. Suit yourself. But the most important thing is just to make sure that you respect other people. Your name is your name, and I think that's the most important thing, right? Yes. Because if you call me Reverend all the time, and you don't say Reverend Nike or Pastor Nike or Nike, I'd rather you just call me Nike, because my name is that's the main identity, So let's not be judgmental about it, but whatever values you value, start out by giving to your children and encourage that it continues down the line.